Hello everyone. I wanted to make a video about a project I had been working on for a little while, a year or so ago. I've been a big fan of Warhammer, from Fantasy and the Old World to 40k and Age of Sigmar. However, I am also a huge fan of the Elder Scrolls, my first game being Skyrim back in 2012. So when the new Slaves to Darkness miniatures were released for Age of Sigmar, I wanted to do something inspired by the Daedra of the Elder Scrolls for them. So in this video, I'm going to go over the models I currently have, and how I drew inspiration from the Daedra to model and paint up my army. So the first thing I wanted to think about when working on this Daedra-inspired army was, what kind of color scheme am I going to go for? Am I going to go for a more general Daedric style theme? Like, the kind of black, silver, and red kind of color scheme that you see in the games? Or am I going to go for a specific Daedric prince, like, maybe Azura, Molag Bal, Mehrunes Dagon? I decided to settle on a more kind of general Daedric theme, and then maybe have the individual units have sort of different Daedric flares to them. Like, for example, maybe Knights of Azura, or a Chaos Lord of Molag Bal, or even like a Sorcerer of Vermina, something along those lines. And so from there, I decided to take a look at the armor that you actually see in the game for the Daedric sets. So the Daedric armors between the games have always been this sort of black, silver, and red color scheme. It does vary in the way it's presented between the games. Like, for example, Oblivion kind of really leaned a lot more into the kind of demonic red fiery glow of the armor, while Skyrim, for example, was kind of more muted with the color. It was definitely a lot more focused on the black and the silver, but with the red just having small, slight glows around like recesses. So I wanted to think about how to bring that into the Chaos models for Slaves to Darkness. And this is what I came up with. So this is the first batch of models I built. I picked up the Slaves to Darkness box when it came out during Christmas. And when I saw the Chosen, I pretty much immediately fell in love with them. So these were the first ones I wanted to work on once they were built. And I sat down taking a look at them, trying to figure out, okay, how can I bring the color scheme of the, let's say, the Skyrim Daedric armor to the Chosen? And so the first thing I decided to do was, okay, silver trim, that's a no-brainer, black armor. But the more I kind of looked at it, I was thinking, okay, a solid black I don't think would work quite so well for what I'm going for. So what I actually did was I picked up a pot of Black Legion, the Games Workshop contrast paint, and went all over the entire model with the Iron Warrior silver color they have. And then I did a dry brush of a lighter silver over it to catch all the edges. Washed that with a black wash, and then blocked in the actual armor panels with the Black Legion contrast paint. And I feel like it really helped to, since contrast, the way it's designed, is to color in flat faces and also, fill in and shade recesses while also leaving highlights around the edges. I thought that would work quite well to kind of give that metallic black feel. So after doing the black and silver, it was time to move on to the red glow of the armor. And I took a look back at the armor styles from Morrowind's Oblivion and Skyrim. And part of me thought, okay, I could just thin down some kind of like flat red color and wash it or glaze it into the recesses of, the armor. But the more I thought about that, the more I kind of felt that might actually be a bit overwhelming for what I'm going for. But taking another look at the armor, I noticed that there were some parts where it looked like things were kind of bursting out, and there were runes carved into it, chaos runes. And so I thought, why don't, instead of just doing like every single recess around the armor where the black meets the silver, why don't I just focus it in on these specific parts, like the breaks in the armor or the runes carved into them? And so I gave that a try. I heavily thinned down some red and then just kind of washed it into those recesses with like a couple of layers, and I think they actually worked out really well. I feel like they give off the kind of red glow that you see with the Skyrim armor, where it's not really faint, but it doesn't overpower the armor with like this really vibrant red glow. So I was really quite pleased when I managed to pull that off. As for the rest of the model, I wanted to try and add in some more warmth to it as well. So for things like the horns and the cloth and the belts and stuff, instead of going for like a black, I decided to go for a brown for the leather, and then for the horns, I actually went for a kind of more warm grey color. Still trying to keep with a monotone style of the Daedric armor, but giving a bit more warmth for some more interest and breaking things up slightly. And then there was the banner, and I really wasn't sure for a while what I wanted to do with the banner. I knew I wanted to do something Daedric, obviously, but I wasn't really sure. Like, do I want to do like Daedric symbols? Do I want to try and depict a Daedric prince? And then I remembered the Mysterium Xarxes page from Skyrim that you can find in Dawnstar. And I was thinking, what if I did something similar to that, but put on a banner? Like maybe it was something taken from a large Daedric parchment of some kind, or some kind of ritual, or some kind of scripture that they're carrying with them into battle. And so that's where the idea came for the banner in the background here. I really wanted to make it look like it was part of some kind of Daedric ritual, while also adding on a kind of chaotic spin to it. So, for example, like right in the middle of the Oblivion symbol there, there's the downward arrow, which, those kinds of arrows are synonymous with the 8-pointed Star of Chaos. And then after that, really, everything else just kind of fell into place, doing the touch-ups, doing the little skulls and runes and stars of chaos. For this second unit of Chosen, I, did pretty much the exact same thing I did with the first unit of Chosen, except I decided to try doing the banner a bit differently, like try and bring it in line with the black, silver, and red. On reflection, I'm not really pleased with this. I think I should have stuck with that kind of parchmenty feel, like stolen from a Daedric lair or horde or something like that. I do feel it came out quite nicely. I don't think that's a problem. I just think it would have fit better if it was still that kind of Daedric parchment kind of style. But other than that, everything else completely the same. Still absolutely pleased with how they turned out. This picture I have here is a work in progress piece. I don't currently have any good pictures of the other unit just yet. But if I ever do revisit this project, then I will, get the up-to-date image and post it in another video. So the next thing to think about was the Ogroids. The Ogroids, they're big, beastie monsters, so there wasn't really much different to do there. But then I also remembered that I actually have the models from the previous edition's starter sets, with the new Thunderstrike Stormcast and the Auric War Clans. And I was kind of thinking, when I was looking at the armor for the larger Stormcast, maybe that could actually work for Chaos as well. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take these and I'm going to try and put them to good use, because I didn't have any plans to actually play as Stormcast. I was actually more interested in the Oryx, the Cruel Boys. And I took a look through the sprue, both the Stormcast one and the Ogroids one. I was thinking, some of these actually kind of fit together quite nicely. Like some of the horns, they kind of fit quite well onto the flatter panels. And I also had some extra Chaos bits from other model kits. So I decided I'm going to build these ones up as Ogroids and have them just be like very heavily armored, shock troops. When I was building them up, I also noticed that the helmets, if I just put the helmets on as normal, they would just seem like, Stormcast. Like someone would look at it and say, oh, okay, it's just more Stormcast. But what I decided to do, looking at the heads and the way the helmets are designed, they kind of look like, after removing the kind of face of the helmet, it made it look more like a kind of beastie, demonic, gaping maw was opening up. Like, looking into it, you see only nothing or darkness or, your worst fears, things like that. And it kind of gave the helmets this really creepy look about them, which for me just screamed Daedra. So I decided that that's perfect. I'm going to add those in, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to stick the horns onto the kind of extra bits of armor between the shoulders and the chest. And of course, for the leader in the middle, I put a tongue in there as well, coming out of the lion's mouth to make it look more chaosy and creepy, because at the end of the day, Daedric inspired or not, it's still a chaos army, so it's got to have some chaos corruption in there. I also wanted to try and expand a bit more on the kind of demonic fiery glow coming from the Daedric armor. So for the shields, I decided to lean more heavily into it. Like, for example, the one on the left, what I did was before I started filling in the Chaos Star in the middle with kind of, reds and oranges and yellows and stuff, I started to do like a kind of circular motion with some red on my dry brush to kind of get a glowy feel around the edges. So I did that quite roughly at first, and then did a lighter red, kind of a bit more focused and lighter around the edges themselves. And I think that turned out quite well as well. Each time I was going over all of this, I constantly surprised myself by how well it was working, how much I really liked it. So I'd honestly call these a complete success, even if they didn't really do too well for me in game. But hey, they look good going out in style, and that's good enough for me. So the last thing I wanted to work on was a Chaos Lord, and drawing from the launch box for the previous edition of Age of Sigmar again, I decided to take the Stormcast banner bearer and see what I could do with that. So I snipped off the banner and replaced it with a hammerhead, and also replaced his sword with a Chaos Sword from the Chosen kit. And I didn't want to go too crazy with this one. I just wanted to put in more subtle kind of features or hints, and kind of let the rest of the armor speak for itself with the color scheme. This one I am incredibly proud of. I think this one turned out perfectly for what I was going for. There is still the hint of chaos about it, but there is definitely a more Daedric feel about it. And I decided to keep the whole, faceless, gaping maw style from the Stormcast that I used before. And I would honestly say this is one model I'm going to cherish forever, like one project I'm going to call one of the best I've ever worked on. The colors, the modeling, everything just turned out pretty much exactly the way I wanted it to. I know I keep banging on about it, but the helmet I'm just incredibly proud of. I think that gaping maw style just works a lot better than I expected, and it's really given this creepy look to them. And it's something I'd really like to bring forward into any future units I bring in, like if I ever get any of the new, for example, Chaos Warrior regiments, or something to that effect. Like, even though this is definitely to people who know Age of Sigmar, this is very clearly a Stormcast, but at a glance, it feels more chaotic and more Daedric. And I think this is the point where I realize I'm going to be sticking with this army for a long while. At the moment, it is kind of on hiatus as I'm working on my Old World army, which I would like to do a video on as well, because while it is Empire, I've decided to use different models for that and give it a different kind of style, which I will, of course, show in a different video. But yeah, I'm just very, very, very happy with how all this turned out. Overall, as I said before, I am incredibly proud of how this project turned out. It started off as just kind of a small idea, like how could I bring this forward? What kind of hints could I throw in? And it ended up just kind of turning into, hey, let's just make an entirely Daedric force of Slaves of Darkness. And I even wrote up some bits of lore, some little stories around it of like how a champion of Slaves of Darkness actually ended up going through a sort of damaged realm gate and found himself in Oblivion instead, and then suddenly emerging with these Daedric forces, and now the Daedric princes becoming this sort of small but growing player in the grand scheme of Age of Sigmar, which I might post somewhere. I might narrate it. I'm not sure. I'm really still trying to figure out where I want to go with this channel, but I am overall enjoying making videos, so we'll see what happens. And if I make any more progress on my Daedric Slaves of Darkness, I will post updates and show how it's going. But in the meantime, thank you very much for taking the time to watch and listen. This was incredibly rambly. I wasn't working with a script on this one except for the opening part. So I do apologize if it got very rambly or hard to follow at all. Very, very sorry about that. But thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I hope that your day goes very well.